Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Payoff Pitch. My name is Joey Olberding, and I will be your host for all things sports. So on this Tuesday, June 26th, I have something that I want to talk about because it happened somewhat recently, and I just want to talk about, who won the NBA draft. And, all 30 teams, they went out there and they either had a game plan or they didn't, and they should have had a game plan, but some of them weren't as smart as others, and that's what I wanted to talk about. A few didn't even get to pick at all, being the Heat and the Raptors, but we'll be talking about the ones that did pick in this edition of the Payoff Pitch, and the picks that they did pick, and who won with those selections. And to start off, I want to talk about the Dallas Mavericks, because the Mavericks had a really smart game plan. They traded for Luka Doncic, who was from Lithuania and had already won with Real Madrid in basketball, and he was already a winner, and he's already one of the most smart young players, and he's only 19, and he's a good-looking guard who will definitely do wonders for the Mavericks as the next Dirk Nowitzki. And Dirk is still playing for the Mavericks at this point in his career, though he's already in his 40s, and he's probably going to retire in a year or two. So having Dirk there to kind of guide Luka will be a good thing for the Mavericks to do, to really ease Luka into that next role that Dirk had as the face of the franchise for the Dallas Mavericks. They also got Jalen Brunson from Villanova, who's also a two-time winner in the NCAA tournament, and he's going to know a lot about what to do, and he really, just like Luka, already has a lot of leadership with him and can already show a lot of players who may be a few years already in the league a lot about the NBA and a lot about being able to play with a team of anybody that nobody else really knows how to. The last pick that they had, Kostas Antetokounmpo, which is Giannis Antetokounmpo's younger brother. It's always, he has that star potential like Giannis has, and it's just the way that he's managed. He could be just like it, or he could just be like another version, though slightly worse, like it was for Seth Curry, who the Mavericks drafted a few years back, who is the younger brother of Steph Curry. And we all know how good Steph Curry is. So that worked out for them pretty well, and Steph Curry is still playing for them. And he's pretty good. He's not great, but he's a solid selection. And Kostas Antetokounmpo was the final pick of the draft. Not just the final pick for the Mavericks, but the final pick in the whole NBA draft. And I think that really has some potential in being a good pick for the Mavericks. And in general, I thought the Mavericks just had an incredible draft. And all three of their selections were incredibly smart and can really guide them greatly into the future. Another team that did really well, and who was mostly for one player, was the Magic. And the Magic are a team that has really been very, bad in the past few years. And they haven't really had any star players on them ever since Dwight Howard played for them, which was like 2009, 2010. So that's a while back, almost 10 years. But the guy that they selected as the number 6 pick really has the star potential. And a lot of people are saying that, the Magic should have gotten a guard because they're kind of lacking at the guard position. But Mo Bamba from Texas is too much of a monster not to pass on. He's 7'2", and he has a wingspan of 7'7". That's just insane. And he's only a freshman, and he will destroy in the NBA. And he reminds me a lot of an NBA Hall of Famer being Dikembe Mutombo. And the fact that if anybody goes into the paint against this guy, they will get demolished. They will get destroyed. They will get blocked. Anything could happen. And he's really just a monster on the inside. And he shoots a 3. It's not the most reliable 3 in the world, but he can still shoot a 3, which, if he develops that a little more, that can really be a big weapon for him instead of just being a guy down low that's really a beast. Another guy that they got was Melvin Frazier from Tulane, who's also an underrated talent. Tulane, of course, was not that good of a team and has not been ever since pretty much its inception in the NCAA. as a college team and has really not been good really throughout that entire time. But Melvin Frazier was very good for them last year, and he could be a solid player, pick number 35 in the draft, and so is Justin Jackson from Maryland, and both look like solid, dependable players in the future. But Mo Bamba from Texas just looks like an absolute beast, and he will probably destroy in the NBA, if you ask me. Now, we need to talk about the guys who had the number 1 selection in the draft, that being the Phoenix Suns, because the Phoenix Suns got their guy. They already have Devin Booker, who's already going to be a star, and he already is a star. But they also got DeAndre Ayton in this draft, who played for Arizona in Phoenix, and he is really just a monster in every way. Much like Mo Bamba, anybody who tries to challenge him in the paint will get destroyed. But Ayton definitely has more offensive weapons than Mo Bamba does, because DeAndre Ayton can really do anything, and he's already going to be a star. We can already see that he is going to be a star when he reaches the NBA, which will be very soon. And Phoenix just lost Alex Len, which was a big man down low, who was really the backup for Tyson Chandler, and DeAndre Ayton will definitely be, at the very least, replacing that role, but he'll already be a starter, just given the amount of solid play that he has. And they also lost Elfrid Payton, who is a point guard, and that gives room for Devin Booker to man the point and to get their next selection, their next big selection, which was a trade from the 76ers for a 2021 first-round pick, which is one of the biggest draft picks that you can really find out there, for Mikal Bridges. And Mikal Bridges from Michigan State is a really, really solid player, and he really does have the star potential, much like DeAndre Ayton. He's going to be great also. He may not be as good as DeAndre Ayton, but he can still really guide a team. And having those two players on the same team will really boast well for the Suns going into next season. And those are just two great picks. Those are just two phenomenal picks for them. Another player, or another team I should say, that I should talk about is the Atlanta Hawks. And the Atlanta Hawks just drafted a few really good guys who I think, okay, yeah, they're going to be solid. Trae Young got really covered a lot in sports last year when he was playing for Oklahoma. Trae Young was drafted at 6, but he was traded to the Hawks for the number 3 selection, which was Luka Doncic. And in any case, Trae Young, he's going to be an absolute dead eye from anywhere on the court. He can really knock any shot down, and he's just going to be a tremendous offensive weapon that will be able to hit from anywhere. And you can see the Hawks being a really good young team next year that might not exactly make it, but as soon as some of these players develop, they'll be great. Another player they got is Kevin Hertier, who will complement Trae Young well, being a shooting guard. And he's also pretty good from everywhere in the court. He can really hit it. He's just also very good. Another guy, the 30th pick from Villanova, Amari Spellman, is another winner, won with Villanova last year, and he's a great big man to be able to complement John Collins, who looks to be another big man of the future there in Atlanta down low. Now, this next team is interesting because they only had one pick, but I think that their pick was perfect. They picked another player from Villanova, Dante DiVincenzo, who was the really MVP of the NCAA tournament for Villanova. He really did awesome against Michigan in the final game, the NCAA championship game. And it's just a perfect fit for the Bucks because Dante is kind of a player who's a bit scrappy. He can really go inside. He's a guard, but his 3-shot isn't even the most reliable thing, but he can really shoot it from anywhere, and he has a chance to make it no matter where it is. And the Bucks made it work for a similar player who was a winner, or almost a winner, Matthew Dellavedova, who worked out great for them. And he also, a year prior, did amazing for the Cavaliers in the 2015 finals against the Warriors. The Warriors won that finals, but Matthew was really a big part in helping them do very well and being able to reach much farther into the finals than anybody expected because everybody else, except for LeBron James, was injured. And a few more. The Spurs, they drafted Lonnie Walker V from Miami. He's just a perfect fit for the Spurs. He's smart, he can really shoot it, and he's really going to be a nice guard for the future once Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili retire, who will definitely be both Hall of Famers in their own right. And he will just be a great player to move them forward. He reminds me of like a Donovan Mitchell or even like a young Derrick Rose before he got all injured. He really is just that talented, and the Spurs definitely have the coaching to be able to make him work and to be able to turn him into a really good star. And the Warriors also great at transforming young players into great players. And I want to mention Jacob Evans from Cincinnati. And he should be very good for Golden State. I mean, Jacob Evans is a good defensive player, and he can also really shoot it. And I think that a good defender is really something that Golden State's always looking for, because defense is the best offense, or offense is the best defense, however you look at it. And he has a really good chance to turn into the next, star that was drafted pretty late. He was drafted 28. Like Draymond Green was in 2011. He just looks like a great player, and he'll probably win a title with Golden State, so there you go. And my last one for the winners is the Pacers, who drafted Aaron Holiday, the brother of Drew Holiday, and the brother of Justin Holiday. And he's a good guard who's a perfect fit for the Pacers, who really need a solid guard to support Victor Oladipo. Darren Collison isn't bad. He may have to play small forward, however, because Bogan Bogdanovic, he may leave. And a lot of players may leave because the Pacers aren't the best. They're not the worst, but Aaron Holiday looks like a nice player for the future. Now, I have 3 losers here, and they're all kind of players or teams that I think not very highly of. I just don't think they'll be that good. And one of them is the Kings with Marvin Bagley III, who's the second pick in the draft from Duke. And this is going to confuse a lot of people because Marvin Bagley was an absolute monster in college. And he could really do everything. He could play terrific defense, and he could play offense tremendously well. He reminds me way too much of DeMarcus Cousins, who played for the Kings for many years, but hated it in Sacramento. Much like almost every player in the NBA, nobody wants to play in Sacramento, and Marvin Bagley III doesn't want to either. He also reminds me of Willie Cauley-Stein, who was proven to be okay, and not even that great. But I think Marvin will just have a tough time adapting to the NBA, which is definitely different, since he only played his freshman year, much like a lot of the players in this draft. I'm not really sure of what he'll be able to do and what he won't be able to do. He also reminds me of Karl Anthony Towns, but like a worse version of him. He reminds me of a lot of players, but I just don't really see how he'll be as amazing as someone like DeAndre Ayton or Luka Doncic. I'm not really sure. He'll probably be good. I'll probably be wrong, but I just don't really have the feeling I do, like I do DeAndre Ayton and like Mo Bamba and all these players taken high in the draft, even Trae Young. I'm just not so sure. A player that I'm more sure won't be good is for the Denver Nuggets, Michael Porter Jr., who's drafted 14, even though he was supposed to be, a top 10 talent, maybe even top 5. But he was passed on because he only played 3 games in college, and all of his, film, all of the stuff that you see of him is from him in high school. And of course, that's definitely a different period. And even in those 3 games in college, he wasn't good. He wasn't, amazing. He wasn't even bad, but it's just that he couldn't really differentiate himself from any of the other players kind of playing in college. He could hit pretty deep threes. He could hit shots, but anybody can do that. And yeah, the only real talent that we've seen of him came in high school. And that injury that he had kept him out for most of the NCAA year. And I'm just not sure of him because the Nuggets, they also have Wilson Chandler still playing small forward that Michael Porter Jr. is supposed to play. And Wilson Chandler is getting pretty old. He's going into his age 35 season, but he's still solid and he's still contributing to the offense. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Michael Porter Jr. at all, and I don't think he's a good pick for the Nuggets. He was picked at 14, which was late for where he's supposed to pick, but I think the Nuggets should have skipped out on him and gotten somebody else. The other guy that they drafted, Jared Vanderbilt from Kentucky, is another young forward who doesn't have quite as much raw talent as Michael Porter Jr., and it's kind of tough to say how good he'll be. I think that he might be solid, but it's really hard to tell, as with most of these players at this stage in the game, as none of them have played in the NBA yet. And my final team, and I was very disappointed by their draft, was the Clippers, who drafted 2 guards, that being Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Kentucky, who is a freshman guard, and Jerome Robinson, who's another guard from Boston College. And they both look like they'll be pretty good. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was traded from the Hornets, and they skipped out on Michael Porter Jr., which honestly, I would have been more fine if they took him, because the Clippers already have a ton of guards. They have Lou Williams, who's a really good player, who won 6th Man of the Year. They have Milos Teodosic, who is a pretty solid player, and he can already man the point pretty well. Patrick Beverley, who's a very solid player and can really be able to play point guard for any team. And Austin Rivers, whose dad is the coach, so he'll resign anyway, no matter what, just because his dad is the coach, and, you don't want to get rid of your son and all that. Clear bias there. And I just don't get it, because if all those guards are still on the Clippers, which they are, it just doesn't make any sense to me, because you draft 2 young guards, but for what reason? You already have enough players, and they're all pretty good, so, I mean, there are 4. You already have a ton of guards, so I just don't understand it all. I think they should have picked Robert Williams from Texas A&M, who was a big man who got drafted very late because of personality issues, but the Clippers have had a lot of that over the past few years. And I think that he should have been the big man that the Clippers really need after trading away Blake Griffin, and all the guys that they got back are leaving, that being Avery Bradley and Tobias Harris. So I'm just not sure. I think that the Clippers should have just drafted a forward and not any guards, let alone 2. And with that, I think that'll do for this week's edition of the Payoff Pitch. Check us out on TuneIn Radio. Check us out on YouTube at Clark Montessori. Follow us on Twitter at Soko Club. And from me, Joey Olberding, I hope you'll stay tuned to 95.7 MRC for more Payoff Pitch and so much more.